Okay.
Okay, here we are. It is Thursday, September 29th, at least here in most of the world, probably not Australia. And this is our Many Paths to the Heart community call. And we have a very full, heartfelt meeting for you today. And I'm going to, usually we do introductions of us as community members first. But we're going to skip over that just for this meeting, and I'm going to pass it over to Donna, who hopefully you met on the last call or saw the recording of the last call, so you have a little familiarity with her. But we're in very capable hands, and I'll still be doing the technical stuff behind the scenes.
All right. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of the evolution from NHE to autonomous horsemanship. Thank you, Stormy, and Many Paths to the Heart community for hosting this discussion. And many thanks to all of you who could make it here with us live during the workday. And hello to everyone who is watching this on the replay. Stormy already mentioned that you're not going to introduce yourselves as you often do, and we really appreciate suspension of that tradition for the sake of time. We only have an hour today, and especially because I really have to leave. If you haven't seen it already, the complete set of questions and written answers from the panel have been posted in the Many Paths to the Heart community online community. So I encourage you to really go read that thoroughly, and might fill in some blanks that we don't cover here, or inspire you in certain directions. We're going to keep our answers to about 3 minutes, just for the sake of time. So to the audience, if we end up cutting people off, it's only for the sake of time, not because we don't love to hear what they all have to say. And knowing all of us, anything that we're talking about today, you could talk about for 3 days, let alone 6 people talking about it for 1 hour. So we're really only scratching the surface. So let's introduce the panel. We have the 3 of us who spoke in part 1, which is Lucie Votypkova, Edward Pershwitz, and yours truly. I'm Donna Condrey-Miller. And I'm really happy to introduce 3 more NHE representatives for the second part: Lovisa Nilsson from Sweden, and Cloe Lacroix and Michael Bevilacqua from Canada. And you see they're 2 cozy in one screen. So let's remember, our discussion is about the lasting influence of the school of Nevzorov Haute Ecole, also known as NHE, founded on the work of Alexander and Lydia Nevzorova. And I just want to remind everybody, I have 10 pages of notes here, and I have to look at them. So I'm doing my little newscaster version of conducting this. So the Nevzorovs turned the horse world on its head about 20 years ago with their principles of educating a horse without coercion, punishment, or painful tack, encouraging hearts and minds around the world to adopt a new approach to relating to horses that we are carrying on today, even though the NHE school no longer exists. So one thing, when Edward and Lucie and I were on the last call, we all had a chance to introduce ourselves with a little backstory about how we came to NHE. So we're going to do that with our 3 new panel members. And Lovisa, would you start that and tell us how you got to came to NHE?
Okay. Hi guys. So yeah, my name is Lovisa. I'm from Sweden. I come from quite a traditional horse background. I've been competing in cross country, show jumping, dressage. Even worked at a race course for a few years, so very traditional. Then I bought a horse. I was supposed to have him as my new cross country eventer, but he had other ideas. And he told me a very stern no, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to. So I started to I started to look for alternative ways, barefoot, bitless, and then I stumbled upon Nevzorov and Alexander and a video of him with Kyogi, and it was breathtaking. So I started searching, and I found more and more, and I entered a school, and that's my path, more or less. So I joined the school in 2008, and I've been a rep since 2010.
Fantastic. I remember you were already a part of the school before I joined, and I love hearing all these backstories because in so many ways everyone's is different, or in a certain way too, you think yours is especially unique, and then you hear everyone's story and it's like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. And so, all right, Chloe, could you tell us a little bit how you got to NHE?
Yes, absolutely. I was lucky that Michael was my first coach. His gentle approach was very different from the standard dominance. So for me, it was very easy to adopt NHE because I had nothing to unlearn. And so was my horse because he was young as well, and he had nothing to unlearn too. So both of us were a clean slate. I was new to horses and he was new to human. So I've been with NHE since 2005.
That is a unique story because there aren't so many people who came to NHE new to horses and with a horse new to humans. So that's really special, neat. Michael, you're going to be up, and we're going to go right into the first question because when you answered the question, you gave us your backstory. So we're going to hear your backstory about how you got involved with the Nevzorovs, and then just kind of go into that first question of realizing that it was more than just working without tack.
Yeah, well, it goes a long way back. NHE attracted different people for different reasons. So before knowing about NHE, my main interest was to explore and develop a friendly relationship with horses. I tried to accommodate as much as I could if I sensed fear in them. At the time, I became a bitless bridle representative for Dr. Robert Cook. That was pretty much unheard of at the time. Riding without a bit, people thought I was crazy. A major turning point for me was when a horse I had saddle trained spooked on a trail ride. He spun around, lost the rider, flew past me and my horse, and in the blink of an eye, we were going the opposite direction, full tilt. I managed to stop my horse and called out to the spooked horse about 200 feet ahead. I called out his name and said, "Whoa." And to my amazement, he stopped. I dismounted, I called him in, he walked back to us. Like that actual little scenario happened really fast. It was clear, but it left me in a kind of an emotional disarray. I shared it with Dr. Cook, and he said, yeah, I should meet someone who he shared some research with. It was Lydia, Alexander's wife. I was amazed when she told me that she was the first one to get a horse into natural collection. But she did it in movement, while Alexander preferred the more traditional stationary position. That was the first time I learned that Nevzorov Haute Ecole existed. I met Alexander through Lydia. Him finding ways to show the horse what he wanted, trust, cooperation. He was for the horse.
Mm.
The joyful play, the friendship that I wanted, and those quiet moments. It's like Lydia had picked me up at the crossroads. And for me, I was sold on day one.
That's fantastic. Your discussion about the bitless bridle, we're going to have a little shout out to Dr. Cook, because Lovisa mentioned the bitless bridle. Michael, this was your experience. Stormy, you told me that you had also learned about the Nevzorovs through Dr. Cook. And it's just a reminder about how what an advantage we have today with NHE having, what do I want to say, staked its claim, so to speak, that, it really has a place in the world of humans relating to horses. But so many of us, we just little by little, it's like, oh, I'll take this, I'll take the spurs away, I'll take the nose band away, I'll take the bit away, just little by little, we let go of those trappings. And then NHE came along, we were like, done, just letting go of all of that and going into this new way. So thank you, Dr. Cook, wherever you are. And so let's see, where am I here? Lost my page. So Lovisa, after you did go through what you went through and you got your horse who said no, and then you're into NHE, what are some of the experiences that really let you think like, oh, this is even much more different than I thought of just not using tack?
Yeah, I think in the beginning for me, I was still quite set on on the same path that I was on before, even if I didn't use tack or force in any way, and I allowed the horse to say no, I was still chasing results. I still wanted the perfect picture of the horse standing on his hind legs and everything looked pretty and perfect and free. So I kind of, over the years, I started to realize that it's not about achieving a goal or achieving a result. It's about the connection that you have with your horse, and it's about the relationship that you have. So it was more the little moments of connection with the horses when there weren't any cameras, no people watching. So that meant a lot to me. And it was also the realization that even if I try to do everything free from force, the horse is still a captive in the conditions that we keep them in, at least the way we traditionally keep horses in Sweden. We choose the group, we choose the setting, how they live, the pastures, when they eat, when they sleep. So they are still captives in our lives, and we choose a lot of things for them. So it became more important for me to kind of enrich the horse's life and make it more good for them, what they're interested in, not so much what I'm interested in.
Right. I really, I'm so glad you brought up the mention of domestication and captivity, because I think it's there's an element that we don't even think about, because we just love horses and we want to be with horses, and it's easy to find a horse. What's the old saying? It's easy to buy. You can buy a horse anytime, but it's hard to sell them, or whatever it is. But I mean, they're just all around, and so you just forget that, oh, this is a creature that is capable of living fully on his own environment and without being dependent on a human. And in fact, I did a little research one time about domestication, and the horse and the cat and a few other, I think sheep or goats or something like that, they're one of the few domesticated animals that can easily go feral and live without dependence on humans. And so I think that the fact that they've retained so much of that makes this kind of interaction we're approaching so much more interesting for me, but so much more vital for the horse, more than we even realize. So had you ever thought about that before, the domestication, or?
No, not previous to this journey. No, I haven't. I just took it for granted that the horse was there for, me to use, potentially.
Right.
Hard as it sounds, yeah.
Yeah. Lucie, in your answer too, you brought up captivity as well, and I loved your story about your advocacy for your horse when you first started doing NHE, or maybe it was before you started NHE. But can you tell us about how when you realized NHE was really different?
Yeah. When I came to the NHE, I was, it was quite lately than the others, and it was quite normal, ride a bit less or working with horses in Liberty. So I was so it wasn't so unique, and I was trying to achieve it, a little successful, a little failure, but it felt like having something fake, like having a puppet, not real interaction or a real friendship I was searching for. And I really desired to have something real. I was thinking about real affection, about real friendship, not just something what is fake or imitated. And that was when I came to NHA with a burning desire to actually have these things and throw away everything I achieved before. So just for one moment to playing a real game with the horse, having, real fun on the both sides. And that was the start of my journey. At first, I just came to know how care about horse, having things done, because it felt so unreal that without punishment, without orchestration or something like that, I could be able to care about such an animal. But little by little, it wasn't right. One moment, it was rather the journey. I came to some realization, and I remember of some certain moment when there was a rumors about the horse was stolen and sold to the slaughterhouse in my country. I was the time at boarding, and the people in stable make some jokes about that they are not afraid about their horses because mine is definitely the heaviest one. And I thought back that my might, was the heaviest one, but she's a pure Frisian, and she's 10 times expensive alive than her flesh could be sold to the slaughterhouse, and that cannot be told about their horses. So, but that left me some thoughts about the situation of horses sold to the slaughterhouse and used, and I was thinking after I was left alone with Maike, listening how she's eating her hay, and it felt unreal for me. I was thinking, how could somebody see in her just price of her flesh? It was such a waste in my point of view. I look at her and see the miracle of the life, her character, personality, what we went through, the love I developed for her, and I couldn't even imagine that it is something you can compare with something you can sell or buy with money. It's not like you can label her with some price. It was a living being.
Right. It's just not a commodity to be
Exactly.
sold, and it is really strange too. I've often thought about horses being, people treat them like they're a piece of equipment or something. And it's like, oh gosh, when you really get to know them, well, for us, it's, we can't even imagine not getting to know them. That's what's really kept us looking for something like this. Cloe, going back to, I don't know that I ever really knew that you and Thunder, or I don't remember, that's probably more the case, my memory is not reliable, but that you and Thunder were so new to each other, or, so in that sense, I love your little story that you told about your experience with Thunder when Michael gave you an exercise to do. Would you share that with us, please?
Yes, absolutely. I remember that day like as if it was yesterday. It was just like we're having a lesson, and Michael was actually teaching me, not Thunder. I was Michael's student. That was not Thunder, that was the student, it was me. And he asked me to ask Thunder to put his hoof onto a big rock. And I'm like, okay, fine. How do I do that? And he's like, you figure it out. And I'm like, there must be a cue. There must be like, do I crank his tail? Do I poke his neck? Like, what do I do? Where do I touch him? What cue? What word? And he's like, think about it as if it was a child that didn't speak your language. What would you do? And he kind of left me on that. And I was like, I was at lost at what to think about it. And I was truly puzzled. And I was driving back home, and actually I was thinking of firing him. Like, I'm glad I didn't for obvious reasons, but then it occurred to me, that big aha moment while I was driving. I was like, I realized that it was not a physical control to make my horse to do something. It was working with the horse's mind. And I had to figure out a way to get my horse to think and understand. So it was just like, from then on, it was the beautiful of a beautiful friendship. We have this way, like, I would say we're like an old couple, you know, almost. Thunder and I, like, we understand each other, we communicate well. He's the most, vocal horse.
Definitely.
Like, every morning I open the door and he greets me like, you know, how do you say it, Henny? Nate. So it's yes.
It's fantastic. Well, I do remember when we were on the forum, and you would share videos with Thunder or tell us stories about him. And I know Edward has a horse who he had from when he was a foal, a very young horse. And there's something fantastic that happens with the horse who doesn't have to learn. I mean, even more so maybe when the human doesn't have to, but the fact that Thunder, it doesn't even occur to him what he could have gone through, you know, or what he might have had to face, you know, that's really something. And then what I wanted to bring up too is your story again points to the responsibility on us, the human self-development that is so crucial to this working with horses, not making the horses responsible for what we want or serving what we want. Is such a big turnaround. And even when Lucie mentioned, you know, that idea of wanting that friendship, and which is fine to want something like that, but remembering that, oh, even wanting someone to be your friend can be a big pressure. So thank you. It's now my turn to share my answer to this when I noticed NHE was not just Liberty training. Because that's when I started looking for NHE. I didn't even know how to ask the question. Like, how do you find the place that isn't regular riding or training or something like that? So I don't even remember exactly how I came to it, but when I finally did get onto the forum, I was just like, what is this place? Like, I felt like I entered a monastery or something, and I just noticed this kind of religious order to it because of the prohibitions. You know, we have these do's and don'ts, and it seemed like many more don'ts. There were so many don'ts. And then the do's were sort of like, well, like you said, you know, how do you ask Thunder to put his hoof on a pedestal? And you're like, wait, first of all, why do I want to do that? And second of all, you know, what is all of this? And shortly after, you know, looking through the forum, I found a quote from Alexander that's one of my favorites of all time. I have like 3 to 5 quotes that I say over and over to people, but this one is, it's hard to tell sometimes where the school as spiritual practice ends and the art of working with the horse begins. And that spoke to me so much because I realized that what I had been seeking from a relationship with horses was really, my own spiritual fulfillment. And so it just shifted really everything about how I thought about the horses. And there wasn't a lot of spirituality brought into what the school taught. It was really based on physical science, material science, and there was even from the Nevzorovs a bit of an atheistic attitude. And but in the Horse Crucified and Risen, Alexander's famous seminal text, he mentions a few spiritual influences, which I think he discussed them as philosophies. But as I looked into them, he talked about Taoism and Zen Buddhism, and of course, his famous mention of the Lakota, which is at the time, I never thought about this way, but certainly our language today was him taking a page from that indigenous way of experiencing nature and the way you would be relating to the animals that you were also living with. So that was really the thing that I noticed. I wanted to talk a little bit, kind of go into a little other aspect of NHE, which all of these things that we're talking about, one of the other real different things about the school is that there was no deadlines. There was no rush. There was no expectation that any of us had to achieve certain things. In typical horsemanship circles, we hear the words of 60 days and 90 days or 30 days even to have accomplished relationships with horses. And here we are, 10 and longer years later, still practicing what we learned and our relationships with our horses. And like you said, Chloe, like you're an old couple with Thunder because just slowly your relationship built. And Lovisa said how, it's the little things, little by little, you just kind of notice that the relationship takes on a character of a relationship. And so you realize that everything we were doing before with horses wasn't a relationship in that sense. It was an interaction, but the mutual relationship is what the Alexander and Lydia have talked about all the time. And of course, the horse being able to say no. I don't think we can have a discussion about this without mentioning that. And I know Stormy in this group, you've talked to all your members about that. Maybe I think you even had a special discussion about it one time. But that being said, we're ready to move on to question 2, which we've already been talking about in a way. It is just how over time, working with your horses this way and working on your self-development, that long-term practice has its effects. And I'm going to kind of keep going since my answer kind of is very related to my first answer, and is that where I went with that that spiritual investigation, and I just really I wanted further explanation of that, how that affected what Alexander did. And I used to be in close contact with Lydia, asking her many things. And I once asked her if Alexander had read the Upanishads, and she said no. And I was like, God, that's so weird, because as I've been studying them, the parallels to NHE are uncanny. And so again, I just really felt that underlying spiritual tradition or which I've come to know is just kind of, rules of how to live a decent life. Having, when you take kind of that spiritual practice out of the sense of a religion, it's just, basic human decent ways to live in the world. And but I appreciate the scriptural tradition and things like that. So I ended up being introduced to something called Advaita Vedanta, which is sometimes called the science of consciousness. And then it really connected with me that it was related to NHE, since Alexander and Lydia were so involved with science. I thought, well, science is science, right? But in different directions. And as we know, science also in Latin means power. So, I mean knowledge, not power. So I've just really carried on my relationship with my horses as a spiritual practice, the way I relate to them, the way I care for them. I don't belong to any particular religious order, but my home is my little monastery, and taking care of the horses, and my environment is their environment, even more than just oh, this is my environment and there are horses in it, So I could go on, and I'm going to stop myself, but Lucie, I get a little choked up talking about all this stuff because it's just really, really emotional. And I think I know when I read comments from people, and I had some interactions with people after the last call, and it really is emotional, and something that on a human level, we're all seeking this kind of, maybe you're not seeking a spiritual thing, but that emotional connection. There's no denying that it's something there for all of us. And Lucie, I think you have a great story about how your practice of NHE principles, I'm going to say, and this way of being with horse came into play when you needed to put a fly mask on one of your horses. Could you tell us how the self-development aspect kind of came into it too, because you mentioned that as well. So what is your story about Goldie and the fly mask?
Yeah. My younger horse, Goldie, showed some signs of sensitivity on insects, so I decided to build a tie mask for her against mosquitoes because, I didn't want a usual net mask during the nights. I wanted without the cover of the eyes so she can see briefly. And unfortunately, the type of mask is very tight. You have to drag it through her head, through her ears. And she obviously doesn't like that type of mask. And she wasn't much cooperative as well. And the first day I came to her with a thought that I have to put it on her. I was thinking how horrible itching is for her, and this might help her. And I feel sorry that it is so horrible. I saw how she's scratching herself with, the mad way, not the pleasure way, but rather when she's going to nuts from it. And I wanted to protect her from this. I felt that this is my duty. And as a result of this mindset, I was searching for how to make things done. My goal was just to put the fly mask on her and protect her. Yeah, when you look at it, it was undoubtedly good intentions. I wasn't putting mask on her for my pleasure or something like that. It was for her. But it doesn't mean that she shared this point of view with me. And at the end, I managed to give it to her in her moment of hesitation and disattention. I was like, oh, you freeze, that's my chance. I will drag it quickly and you will see it's nothing so terrible, I will be quick and it will be all right. But the next day when I appeared with the mask again, she ran away to the opposite side of the pasture in the moment she spotted I had my mask with me. Normally she is quite like my shadow, following me everywhere. She likes people company, but when she spotted mask, it was obvious what I'm going to do. And I was like, well, it didn't go well. It was it was a consequence of my tricks the previous day. And I was thinking, that I need to change my mind. And the next day I just appear, but instead of being focused on the mask and how to put it on her, I was focused how to make sense to her, to be honest with her that, yeah, my intention is to put the mask on her. It's not a pleasure for her. I'm aware of it. And I was searching a way how to do that with her agreement, that she's aware what is happening. And, it's not just taking advantage of some moment of hesitation. And I stayed with her in shelter area, showing the mask clearly to make her clear that, yeah, that's my intention, that I'm going to put a mask on her. And of course, she walked away. And I didn't chase her. I just stayed her and wait for her. And after some time, she just returned and then again walk away. And I concentrating not to feel a pressure that I must find a way how to put it on her. And I stopped thinking that, I know better than her what she needs. And I waited, she came and walked away again and again. And it repeats several times. And after she finally came and stayed. And I put mask on her and she didn't walk away. Yeah, it wasn't pleasure for her, obviously. Of course, she didn't start loving the mask, but the process of putting the mask on her was without tricks. It wasn't dishonest, and she was aware what was happening, how it is done, and it was not some kind of trick of taking advantage of the moment of her weakness. And what changed? Usually in traditional horsemanship, it is about how how you keep the halter where you stay and what you do, how dominant you are. But it wasn't that case, nothing changed at all. I put the mask the same way, I stay on the same place, and I didn't give her some amount of reward. And my relationship with her was, it doesn't change in one day, some dramatically.
Yeah.
But what's changed was my mindset. I stopped thinking to be focused how to make things done and having full head of my agenda, what I have to do. And instead, I was focused on her to, to make her understand me that I'm trying to do something and it is very important for me. That was the thing what changed the outcome.
If I can interject, one of the things I heard you say that was so telling is, especially when you said, okay, I'm not going to try to hide it from her or be sneaky, and that you showed it to her, but when you just described her walking away but coming back, that is really says something about the time horses take to investigate things and be curious about things. And for her just to know that she could go away and that you weren't going to keep following with her with the mask until she just gave up, that you were still clear. It's like, yes, the mask isn't leaving. We still need to do this, but letting her approach it on her own time. And, those kinds of things are very subtle and easy to miss. And, that's really that's a great example too. And you mentioned the word mindset of, okay, this is on me to present this to her in a way that she can understand and more on her terms. And wonderful. So again, that's just another subject we could talk on and on about. So Michael, you're going to have the last word on question 2 today about how the long term and you already know I'm going to ask you about, are you the longest term NHE student since Sergey and was Alexander's first student in Russia? I mean, must have been there right about that time. Is that accurate?
It was just about that time, a little bit after it, because when I met Lydia, it was they were only contained in Russia.
Right.
They asked me to set up the international forum and to start doing things in English. So
Mhm.
essentially from the beginning, it was about 2004, I was the bridge from there to here.
Wonderful. Thank God. Thank you, Michael. Well, it's my life is forever changed from having found the NHE school and had such great teachers as you and Chloe and others. And so, I just wouldn't even be at all where I am today without that. So I'm grateful. Again, I guess we have to say thank you, Dr. Cook. He's the hero of the day. We need Dr. Cook t-shirts or something. So how else has, though, your long-term practice affected your life, or is it reflected in your life today?
Well, yes, it continues. Well, Alexander and Lydia are the founders of NHE. And although the Nevzorov Haute Ecole school no longer exists, the principles and values existed before and continue today. It's how we apply it to ourselves and to our horses, for acceptance without ego, to allow horses to flourish. It shows in the representatives around the globe, even some people who never even heard of NHE. Because Alexander showed us what a certain kind of relationship could be. Ground exercises, play, even teaching them the alphabet. But Xenophon wrote about teaching horses in 360 BC, about their cognitive capabilities, allowing them expression, the fluidity of movement when they're not restrained. They had to teach for war, but he recognized it at least.
Yeah.
Alexander, teaching the horse to recognize colors, objects, how to spell. It wasn't only to reveal the potential in the horse, but to help to change the view of people towards them. Because they tend to have more basic respect for animals that can show some kind of intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Horses have their own character, thoughts, feelings, forms of expression, tolerance. For us to see clearly reality in front of our eyes, having patience, being able to accept a no, realizing where we need to improve our own knowledge as well. We understand each other, like Chloe mentioned, it's like sometimes with a glance, like an old couple.
Yeah.
Like in the previous call, Edward mentioned the camera sometimes getting in the way, and for the sake of determination, ego, for those looking in, outside looking in. But he learned, or like all of us have learned or will learn, the best moments happen when there is no camera around, and the best moments are captured within our hearts.
Yeah.
It could seem contradictory to sort of have a goal, but not have an agenda. You have to be yourself, authentic. There's no textbook for learning love, respect, and friendship. Sometimes trying to copy a way of doing things doesn't fit your character.
Right.
And the way sometimes Stormy describes autonomous horsemanship, they have to be free to express themselves in freedom and peace.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's the life that I've been striving to live. and allow to the horses as well.
Well, thank you. I think clearly, I mean, certainly for me and those of us who know you, you have been a shining example of all of that. And I think Lovisa certainly has experienced it. Lucie, everyone I know, because I've either read your writing or, you know, hearing you speak today and knowing how it's affected my own life. I just encourage everyone to embrace it. You know, we're kind of making jokes about ending up like an old married couple with your horse, but you know, who wouldn't want that? You know, what are we all seeking when we're trying to have relationships anyway? So giving the relationship that time to develop as well. You know, like you said, Michael, you have a goal where you want, you know, you have a goal for the horse to be healthy and stimulated appropriately for his mind and for us too. It's like, well, you know, we start to get into that question of what is our purpose of life, and so this really addresses that so well. All right, everybody, we're approaching the end, and even faster than I thought it was going to come. It was probably from me talking too much, but so Lucie mentioned the word mindset, and I think you may have just said it too, Michael, and we talked about it a little bit and throughout the thing, but mindset is one of the biggest things. If you can't do anything else, just work on your mind before you try to achieve anything else. You know, make sure your mind is in the right place. But we asked everybody on the panel, and they generously obliged to give us some of what their mindsets were. And Edward, I don't see you on the screen, but I know you're here. And since you haven't spoken today, I would really love if you could share some of your mindset tips with us. And I wanted to point out that in your written answer, you mentioned something that's so key, is that, and it relates to the idea of captivity again, is that when we begin to balance the relationship with the horse, we actually have to turn it almost unbalanced because of the horse's captivity and his dependence on us, so that an equal playing field, you know, if it were an infographic, it wouldn't actually be level because we're compensating so much for the horse's captivity. And Edward, all right, in that case, let us know your mindset tips.
Now, this is so true about the symmetry. We enter this relationship with the horse without really clear realization that they are, in a sense, a captive slave to us. They're very much loved, but they are still a captive slave, because every aspect of their existence depends on you, and they realize it. And so a good mental experiment to have would be to try to run it through your mind what it is to be a loved slave. Someone's taking care of you, someone's loving you very much, but you do not have the freedom. You depend on them for everything, for every single aspect of your existence, but they love you. What would that feel like? What would that be like? And if we can actually feel it with our gut, not with our mind, but with our gut, what that means to be a loved captive, then we could perhaps approach our horses with a different mindset, to where we're not striving for a symmetry in that relationship, but we're striving for something that will be heavily shifted in their favor. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. There's this other thing, and it might be a little more practical, and that's feeling that you're a teacher. So you decided you're not going to ride. You decided that you're going to be following this different approach to horses. Now what? Now you show up in the pasture and you're thinking, okay, well, now I'm going to teach my horse to, I do not know, do high steps or lie down or whatever it might be. So you have this in your mind. So you show up there and you have an expectation that if you do the right thing, then the horse will learn to do what you're trying to teach them. And it places expectations on you to do the right thing. And it places the expectation on the horse that if you do the right thing, they will learn what you're trying to teach them. So I call it a teacher mindset. It's driven by expectations. I want to mention Michael. Stormy posted this link to his article, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read it. And it struck me when I reread it. I read it a long time ago, but I reread it. And it struck me how relevant it is in the context of what we're talking about. He is talking about how accidental it was that he started exploring this idea of communicating with horses using symbols. That it wasn't that he showed up in the pasture with a pointer stick and a whiteboard or a bunch of pictures and decided, okay, well, I'm going to teach my horses to do this. It was because the horses showed to him that they respond to it. He was just muttering to himself, and then, oh, they respond to it, so let's explore it. So the student mindset is what I mentioned there in that write-up as well, is a mindset of exploration. It's a mindset of possibility. It's not a mindset of expectation, and that's a huge thing. It's a huge shift that you can make.
Yeah, that God, just hearing you say it kind of gives me chills a little bit, because we don't realize how we go through our day just so determined to get everything done and make it happen, and then we go to our horses, and as much as we think that, oh, we're not really doing that, we may still be doing that. And so that idea of exploration, and this is the beauty too of the horse saying no to us, is that it's a little check for us, like, oh, my horse didn't want anything to do with that, even though it seemed, I thought it was a nice thing or a pleasant thing or something like that. So yeah, really, really big.
Yes, and so it really, I mean, again, when I saw this again, Michael, and Michael, forgive me for saying this, this is the towering authority in all things NHE. Michael is. He is a mentor to all of us here, and infinite respect for him. But the thing is that he keeps this student mindset. He never turns into a teacher. It's always an exploration. It's always, Chloe mentioned the same thing. I mean, you figure it out. You explore how you do this. There is no pattern, no method, no sequence of things that you need to do or do things right, in a sense. It is an exploration. So we're constantly learning from this experience, and we cannot lose lose sight of that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I want to say we're about 4 minutes away from our hour, and I really would love to hear what everyone else has to say. And Stormy, what do you think about a few extra minutes, even though I said no to that? Because I can't resist.
Right, I know. Go ahead.
All right, so really quickly, I'm going to just run through everybody. Chloe, you had your mindsets, everyone's were a little different. So just as quickly as you can, share your mindset, Chloe, and then Lovisa will have you share yours, and then Michael, and then I'll throw mine out there for the last bit. So Anyway, Chloe, what were your mindset tips?
Yes, always be aware of what is going on around you. Don't take anything for granted in what you see in horses. Pay attention to what they're doing or how they're acting. Are they focused on something in the distance? Are they nervous, calling out, want to play? They may know something you don't. They may be trying to tell you something. Just be aware.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you, Michael, for this beautiful visual send off to our conversation today. Louisa, I'd love to hear yours. And I really love that how you mentioned, oh, might be kind of new age, but, and, but it's so true. It's
Yeah,
so true.
did I say that? I did. Yeah. Well, I mean, your mindset is important, but it's also important to regulate your own emotions, because no matter your intentions, when you try to do something with a horse, there are some things that you need to get done. You need to get veterinary care done, hoof trimming done. And things happen when you interact with the horse. They might get spooked, you might get scared. It's important to try to regulate your own emotions, to stay calm and don't get stressed. Don't try not to get angry. Try to find this peaceful, calm sense of self, ground yourself, and find that inner peace that you can kind of, I mean, you can feel people's state of mind. And if they have like a nervous energy or like an angry energy, the same with horses, they are even more sensitive than humans are. So they will feel if you're nervous, they will feel if you're angry or irritated or annoyed or whatever. If you have an agenda, they will feel it. So just try to calm your inner state and be grounded.
Wonderful. Lucie, I almost skipped over you. Do you have a quick mindset tip for us? I mentioned how you talked about keeping company with other people to help you with that.
Yeah, as Lovisa said, be able to control your emotion in situations is very important. But to me, helping to keeping my mindset as well, because the thinking you have determine your feelings, your reactions, and so on. When you are going to the horse with some agenda, you can get, as Edward said, easily irritated because you have an expectation, you have some duties and so on. And keeping the mindset free of that when you are coming there is very important. And my recommendation is that to surround the people with the mindset you need, because when you will hear expectation from all the corner of your place that you should do something, you have to do something, and your horse has to do that and this, you will infect with this thinking wherever, no matter how strong you are. And what helps me when I'm feel pressed or feel with that leaves me my peace and my right mindset, to speaking with somebody who has it will put you back to the, I would say, calm state.
Right. Everything too we're saying is all about, this is stuff you do before you get with the horse. You might also do it while you're with the horse for sure, but a lot of times, especially if you're having a kind of day where you need to excise some stressful emotions or some fears or anything like that, so you don't go there kind of expecting your horse to accommodate your disturbance. It's the other way around. We're trying not to add disturbance. Michael, when you answered this question, you really made me think about, and everyone really is saying this as well, but that idea of flexibility, and it made me realize, remember that when it comes to mindset, there are two terms. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And we really have to be flexible between those two. Could you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I like what you said about just recognizing what you are, because I mean, sometimes there's seemingly contradictions, like I had mentioned earlier. You want to achieve a goal, but you have no agenda.
Mhm.
You know, and a good fixed mindset, it's like it's really being open or recognizing any frame of mind or emotional state that you're in. Knowing that you're at your best self. And again, trying to be your best self in a way is being selfless.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. All right,
it's
thank you. I'm gonna just, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
okay.
I
Well,
thought you were done.
no, well, from the beginning, Lydia always said, never go out to your horses angry.
Yeah,
I mean, we live in a turbulent world, and realistically, sometimes daily hectic schedules can be overwhelming.
Yes.
With horses, we do need a daily routine to, you know, to ensure their health and their well-being. I'm going to stop those sharings.
Sure.
Now, my advice for anyone would be to not expect to be a superhero every day. If there's some work that needs to be done, a hoof trim, a fence repair, whatever, don't try to squeeze it in before you have to go to an appointment or a meeting or any other timed obligation. You're going to feel rushed, unfocused, and you're going to get easily stressed or frustrated. Get things in time, organized in advance to make things flow as quickly, as smoothly as possible. And always remember, tomorrow is another day. Allow yourself some time to just relax and enjoy the moment with your extended family.
that's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. And it again speaks to just that there is no rush for any of this. It's just the relationship, it's unfolding. It's a growth of a plant, a flower, blooming, seasons where certain things are happening, other things are happening. I know where I live, you know, when summer comes, it's like, oh, that's our downtime. It's too hot to do anything. Where you guys live, where it has long winters, it's like, okay, when winter comes, we slow down, you know. And so nature itself kind of teaches us what to do. And when we don't try to override it, you know, by the fact that we can have light any time of the 24 hours of the day, or we can have any kind of food we want any 24 hours or any season of the year, no matter what the season really is for a certain fruit or vegetable. And so all of your advice is great. It's been wonderful talking with all of you, and thank you so much. I'm going to just leave my mindset advice at the very end. I put it in one sentence, and it's just something to think about, which is the simplest way to instant gratification is to be gratified by every instant. And, you know, that's the kind of thing where you think, what? I don't want instant gratification. Yes, you do. And then you think, I can't possibly be gratified by every instant. Yes, you can. You can find a little seed in there. You might have to dig down. You might have to take a breath and just, you know, what about this hard thing? You know, sometimes when there's an obstacle, you're grateful for it. So, and there's something, it's an automatic pause given to you by something bigger than you. Anyway, I think, alas, we have to call this to an end. It was wonderful, and thank you to the panel. Oh my God, you guys are so great. You're so wonderful, and thank you for working with me and going through all of my pages of notes that it was a big, we used a lot of paper, or I did. Maybe you guys didn't have to print it, but Stormy, would you like to have any last words?
This is epic. This is the first time I've been in the same room with so many of these change makers, trailblazers, you know, the whole Nevzorov school, they had a forum, and there were just, you could be busy in there for days and years reading. And these were a lot of the people who were making those posts and just sharing their journey in their diaries. And we're doing our best to have our own version of it in the Many Paths to the Heart community. In a lot of ways, we're still very small, which means you can have a lot more access to some of these people who are in the community, who are still generously giving their time to help each other, walk each other home. I think that's what we're all doing here, walking to this greater home that we all remember at some level.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stormy. Thank you, everybody.
Everybody's muted.
Oh.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you very much.
guys.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Good to see you all.
You too. I hope
You too.
this
Thank you.
isn't, we don't have as many years between the next time we all meet, right? So maybe we can, now that Zoom is so popular, we all have it, we all know you know how to do it. We should have some meetings a little more often.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's put that in our intention. All right,
Okay.
guys, we'll see y'all, or some of you hopefully, in another month.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.